In this channel, we go beyond appearances, exploring the invisible dynamics that drive human behavior, archetypes, the unconscious, hidden emotions, and the authentic value of being yourself. If you too feel that a deeper meaning lies behind every gesture or word, here you will find the answers that traditional psychology and philosophy often fail to offer. Our journey doesn't stop at the surface. We delve into the symbolic, biological, and cultural roots that have guided humanity's choices for millennia. A journey that intertwines mind, history, and myth to reveal what remains hidden from the distracted eye. Every archetype, every unconscious image, becomes an interpretative code capable of explaining how our daily actions are connected to a collective memory that spans centuries. In this sense, understanding these dynamics means not only studying psychology, but exploring a blend of anthropology, philosophy, biology, and symbolism that enriches knowledge and provides critical tools for interpreting the present and imagining the future. In the first moments of a meeting, the male brain can make unconscious judgments based on a few perceptual cues, such as eye movement, facial expression, or even tone of voice. It's not just about aesthetic attraction. According to Carl Gustav Jung, these impulses originate from the deepest layers of the psyche, regulated by age-old archetypes and rooted in human evolutionary heritage. These rapid and subtle, often unconscious processes constitute mechanisms for the survival and continuity of the species as they guide the choice of potentially suitable partners for procreation and relational stability. They explain why, beyond fleeting fads and subjective preferences, certain characteristics continue to exert universal appeal. Furthermore, the brain integrates these signals with implicit memories and patterns learned during childhood, constructing a complex response that is simultaneously biological, symbolic, and cultural. In this sense, what appears to be a spontaneous impulse is actually the result of sophisticated processing that combines evolution, the collective unconscious, and personal biography. So what are the physical traits that immediately capture male attention? Jung argued that attraction isn't the result of contingent individual tastes, but rather the expression of unconscious patterns that guide perception beyond the conscious level. In men, these patterns focus on indicators of health, fertility, and emotional availability. The intersection of biological predispositions and psychic symbols creates a common matrix that guides perception. We will therefore examine the 5 feminine characteristics that most readily attract the male gaze, drawing on the perspective of Jungian psychology and evolutionary science. This investigation does not aim to reduce attraction to a simple biological calculation, but to understand its layers, biology, the archetypal dimension, and the influence of personal experience. The eyes, defined by Jung as the mirror of the soul, convey trust and emotion. Intense eye contact stimulates oxytocin, strengthening social bonds and creating an immediate sense of familiarity. Large, luminous eyes evoke youth and openness, reflecting the archetype of the anime and fostering profound connections that transcend mere aesthetic perception. The intensity of the gaze can become a bridge between the conscious and the unconscious, evoking archaic internal images and recalling collective memories rooted in the collective unconscious. Furthermore, the gaze not only communicates attraction, but also serves as a channel for vulnerability, authenticity, and emotional intent. The eyes, as perceptive and symbolic organs, thus become the place where biology and psyche meet, a crossroads that allows us to detect subtle signals of affection, interest, and openness to connection. Their function, both on an evolutionary and symbolic level, is central to the formation of interpersonal bonds and the construction of meanings that transcend individual consciousness. Lips are a signal of communication and sensuality. Their fullness is correlated with high estrogen levels, while smiling and kissing evoke archetypal dynamics that connect the conscious and the unconscious. Lips convey not only an aesthetic message, but also convey emotional meanings rooted in the symbolic history of humanity. Every expression, from a smile to a word, thus takes on a value that transcends the biological dimension, becoming the bearer of profound and layered psychic messages. From an evolutionary perspective, they represent an element of sexual selection, as a genuine smile can indicate trustworthiness and social availability, while well-groomed and symmetrical lips signal health and fertility. On a symbolic level, the lips are also a threshold and a boundary. They separate the inner world from the outer world through language and eating, vital functions that take on ritual significance in many cultures. It's therefore not surprising that throughout history, they have been imbued with religious and cultural meanings, becoming a metaphor for truth, promise, and emotional bond. Thus, their role extends far beyond physiology, embodying the union between body and psyche, between individual expression and collective memory. Hair, in universal cultural symbolism, is an expression of vitality and identity. Its shine signals health and youth, and is often interpreted as an outward manifestation of inner balance. Jung connects it to the Great Mother, an archetypal figure of nourishment and generative power, emphasizing how hair represents the continuity of life and a connection to primordial energies. It's no surprise that fairy tales and myths have often associated long, thick hair with power and attractiveness, transforming it into a true hallmark of strength and fertility. They are a metaphor for vital energy and, at the same time, a sign of social status and cultural belonging, since hairstyles, colors, and hair care rituals have always constituted symbolic languages capable of communicating identity, role, and condition. In many spiritual traditions, hair is seen as an extension of subtle energies, an invisible bridge between body and spirit, amplifying the sense of connection with the community and the sacred. Thus, beyond its aesthetic value, hair becomes a narrative element that reflects both biological health and the cultural and symbolic stratifications of a community. The waist-to-hip ratio is one of the best-known indicators of biological fertility and universal attractiveness. A WHR, waist-to-hip ratio close to 0.7, is perceived as attractive in many cultures, as it signals hormonal balance and reproductive capacity, as well as metabolic health and resistance to disease. This ratio, consistently observed in anthropological research, appears to be rooted in an evolutionary mechanism that orients male reproductive choices toward partners with a greater likelihood of successful procreation. This measurement symbolically reflects the archetype of the mother, evoking care, fertility, and generative continuity. Beyond the purely physical dimension, this relationship evokes the idea of balance and harmony, principles that the psyche naturally associates with beauty and stability. Furthermore, the reference to harmonious forms refers to a broader symbolic order in which symmetry and proportion are not simply aesthetic factors, but reflect the search for coherence between nature and the psyche. Thus, the positive perception of the waist-hip ratio emerges not only as a biological instinct, but as a convergence of the collective unconscious, cultural symbolism, and evolutionary needs. Finally, Skin is an immediate signal of health and integrity. A smooth surface suggests hormonal balance and an efficient immune system, elements that the human brain instinctively recognizes as indicators of well-being and vitality. For Jung, it represents the integrity of the self, the interior dimension that unifies the psyche and is visibly reflected externally. Spontaneous redness or a natural glow become visible cues to which the mind automatically reacts, stimulating perceptions of authenticity, vitality, and spontaneity. The skin, being the boundary between interiority and exteriority, takes on a further symbolic meaning. It is the living frontier that simultaneously separates and connects the internal and external worlds. In cultural and symbolic tradition, it has also been interpreted as a veil protecting the soul, and its aesthetic condition has been associated with purity, nobility, or decay. In an archetypal sense, the skin thus becomes not only a biological surface, but also a visual narrative of the internal state. Its transparency, its imperfections, even its scars, tell a life story, transforming the body into a text readable to the eyes of others. All these elements compose an invisible language that intertwines biology and emotion, instinct and culture. Fashions may change, but archetypal signals remain immutable over time. Jung, along with evolutionary science, reminds us that what attracts us is not simply the result of individual taste, but the reflection of ancient needs imprinted in our psyche. But attraction is never just biology. Personal experiences shape tastes. The shadow, according to Jung, represents the unconscious and repressed aspects of our psyche and can profoundly influence what we find attractive. A man raised with emotional deprivation might unconsciously seek eyes that express warmth. Our preferences are therefore the intersection of ancient patterns and personal experience. Culture also plays a powerful role. While certain signals are universal, fashion and the media alter aesthetic criteria. However, archetypes endure. Even rebellions against dominant standards use other symbols to communicate strength, identity, and desirability. Ultimately, attraction is a dance between biology and psyche, between instinct and meaning. Understanding these mechanisms isn't about manipulation, but about authentically connecting with yourself and others. When you present yourself with confidence, with listening ear and a genuine presence, you amplify the unconscious signals that generate authentic attraction. What do you think is the detail that truly captures attention at first glance? The eyes, the smile, the body, or maybe the voice? Write it in the comments and share your experience. If you'd like more content on psychology, archetypes, relationships, and the unconscious, subscribe to the Philosophy of the Invisible channel and hit the bell. Every week we explore together the hidden forces that guide our deepest choices. Thanks for following us this far. And remember, true attraction always comes from authenticity.